What's good, people? This is SimFBallCritic, and this is the SimStandard. We're taking a look at NCAA 13, and this is the demo. And basically the reason why I'm using this footage is because it is the most recent football game, the most up-to-date footage that I have. So this is what you're going to get. But of course, the topic of discussion is Madden. But, I also think that it's relevant for NCAA as well, because I've used the same term for both games. Alright, so what we'll be talking about here briefly, a lot of people are asking, what does solid mean? SimFBallCritic, when you say the game is solid, what are you talking about? I said, okay, I'm going to try to do my best to give you my definition. You may or may not agree. You may or may not understand. Or you may or may not care. But here it is. Basically, when I look at a game, especially a football game, I'm looking to see how well the game plays, as far as how consistent is the gameplay, how much it feels like football, and how much is replicated. Does the game replicate the sport of football? Alright, so I'll start off with saying this. I look at the things that I need to be addressed, and we all know that in prior years there were many things. I asked numerous times for ball trajectories. I know a lot of you guys who really follow me, when they talked about ball trajectories in the webcast, a lot of you guys sent me direct messages, was like, man, Sim, that's exactly what you've been talking about. I talked about that numerous times. I talked about psychic defenders numerous times. I've talked about psychic, well, not psychic, but super linebackers. Numerous times I've talked about that. I haven't talked about the quarterback dropbacks as much. I may not have actually touched on it myself, but I know other guys in the community has. So that's something else that we've talked about. Improve run blocking. Now, this is just my opinion, but I think a lot of you guys may agree from playing this demo that the run blocking looks a lot better, in my opinion. So that's another thing that we've talked about, improving the run blocking and, the logic and the AI of, that of the tight end or the fullback. Now, I have seen some situations where the fullback blocking is questionable, but I have also seen other situations where everyone is being accounted for. The right person is being blocked. So again, some of these things, we'll have to wait until we have replays to really find out how consistent the game plays. And that's really it in a nutshell. Based on my experience, based off of everything that we've ever talked about before, you do the math, you look at the things that are added and the things that are still missing, then automatically I give it a percentage. So let's real briefly, do a recap here. Running animations and overall player movement, you guys know that's my biggest pet peeve. We all know by now that has not received a huge overhaul. No, it has been touched up, it has been tuned, but it hasn't received an overhaul. So simply put, it's still not going to be up to satisfactory for a lot of guys. Alright? As well as the O-line, D-line interaction. Has been touched up, has been tuned. I've said that. You see it yourself in E3. And like I said, what I played plays better than E3, but it has not been an overhaul. So once again, we already know those are the two major areas of concern. Those are my biggest two concerns. Even before some of these other things were addressed, those were my two biggest concerns. But even with that being said, if you just do simple math, the game is pretty solid. Why? Why, again, I know you're asking, what is solid? Solid to me means that a game plays accordingly at least 70% of the time. I want to see it 100% of the time, which we know that may not ever happen. But I want to get to, as close to 100 as I can. So, I like to cap it off at 70%. 70% of the time, you're going to see Madden 13 plays accordingly. You're going to see the proper techniques, proper blocking, defenders reading and reacting to the balls, receivers going for the ball, ball placement, ball trajectories, solid tackles, clean double hit tackles, gang tackles when necessary. things of that nature, receivers running great routes. And actually the receivers and the DBs, you will see a lot of times that these guys showcase foot planting and sometimes even proper footwork. I just think that the movement, it doesn't translate over to the ball carrier as of yet, because you can't really pull off some of those foot plants controlling the ball carrier, and then when you do, it's not as clean. But outside of that, man, I'm telling you, you will see that the game plays consistently 70% of the time. It is not a perfect game. There's still areas that definitely still need to be addressed. But like I've always said from the beginning, I want to see progress from EA Sports. I see progress. That's my opinion. I'm going to own up to it. I see the progress. So therefore I can say they're moving in the right direction. Let's continue to push as a community to get everything that we want. Let's do it. This game is not final, it's not complete. There are things that still need to be addressed, so let's do it together and make it happen. And that's it. I hope I explained myself. Maybe I rambled on. I don't know. But let me know what you think.